before we hit record, we're talking about volunteering and how it can be a core value to one's life, that you can start volunteering when you're in like when you're in third grade, and you can go all the way through to your 90s. And I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that. Can you bring us up to speed? And then I'll ask you about how you volunteer.
Sure. I believe in my case, it does come up as a core value in being a Girl Scout. In a college sorority, there are very important volunteer opportunities, and volunteering is a way to give back and something to feel good about, especially when you feel as though you've really made an impact on someone's life or within a community. So I think that if we grow up doing some volunteering along the way, it stays with us as something that we realize we enjoy and makes us feel good.
Why do you volunteer? Why do you give of yourself to each of these three like impactful organizations or opportunities? Like, why? What in your heart wants you to do this?
It's a good question, and it's very simple for me because someone did it for me. Like, I can think back to my own life and things that were meaningful to me. I watched somebody just give of themselves, give of their service. The Sunday school teacher doesn't get to be the Sunday school teacher. You know, she shows up out of her heart and she's giving of service. And so that was my first example of watching someone give and how important it was, seriously took it, and how much I benefited from it. Women in my community would pull together, a girl group and have us learn about nutrition and, self-esteem and those kinds of things. And those are women giving up their Saturdays and just wanting us the young women in my community to go out in the world and be as good as we can be. And that was their time. That was their service. And they just gave. And I've witnessed other things where I've just seen the happiness on people's faces when they're volunteering. They just look happy. I mean, it was amazing. I was like, I like that look. I like that look of how that person is showing up ready to be of service. And so for me personally, I've seen it throughout my own life, benefited from it. And, I just get to watch it now, and it brings me a lot of joy.
Your volunteers, once they come, they're hooked. They stay with you a long time.
Pretty much, yeah. We did lose some people with COVID. They weren't comfortable, being around other people in any extent. So we did lose some, but some of those people I've heard back from this year, and it's great because people love what we do. They love the music. People love free music. And I tell them that if you give me 4 hours of volunteer time, you can see everything for free. I'll give you a pass that gets you into every venue and a cool t-shirt.
Well, then let's go into that. Tell me more about your volunteers.
So the volunteers are really the heart and soul of our little theater. And we really, really need you to do all sorts of stuff. Membership, the first year, if you decide to become a member, you're an associate member, and there's certain things that are required for ushering for like 2 to 3 performances. I love to usher. It's a lot of fun because you get to have people come in and they're all excited about being at the play, and you get them to their seats, and it's kind of fun. You have to participate in like 3 different work sessions during the year, like a set strike. That's when the set comes down. I hate that because it's only a month and you work on a big play. And I keep telling the paint company, I go to Home Depot or someplace like that, and I say, I only need cheap paint. It's only going up for a month and then it comes down again. strikes, general cleanup days, set building, or you can do, and you have to do one backstage job like main stage production or decor or set building or lights or sound or any of that stuff. That's fun because we've got all that equipment.
That's very cool. If you were to encourage someone else to start volunteering, what would you say to them?
Oh, good question, Stormy. I would probably emphasize the fact how fulfilling it is to have that feeling of giving back to the community in that way.
Wow, the impact you just don't realize.
You don't realize what, one small, simple thing of delivering a meal, how it impacts a person's life. And, just a smile, a visit. We have a number of kids that, from all over, that send cards and letters to our clients. And I thought, oh man, you probably don't like getting all this stuff. They love it. They absolutely love it because they don't have anybody in their life.
All right. What's your most favorite part of working with a student?
I love being around the kids. They all have this fun personality and, they're young. They're not adults yet. They have opinions, but they don't have like these worldly opinions. They're kids. So they say stuff and you just start laughing and they're just so sweet and so kind. And it's honestly, the reason I go every week is to be around those children. They are the sweetest kids. Anytime whether it's we give them dinner or we are so excited and tell them we're so proud of them, their faces, they light up. They are so excited and they're so happy to see us every time. And that is what brings me back every week.
What would you want our listeners today to understand about the work that the volunteers do behind the scenes?
So at Longwood, I think our volunteers are a critical part of our Longwood family, and they really help support every section of the gardens. And without their assistance, like I had said before, Longwood would never look the way it does because we rely on their help so much. So I think a lot of times you'll hear guests come in and they'll say, oh, the gardens are beautiful. I never see anybody working. It's just this beauty that comes up. And yes, the gardens are beautiful, but it takes a lot of work to keep the gardens looking as beautiful as they are. And that is in large part because of our volunteer team. And not only to keep the gardens looking beautiful, but also to engage with our guests and keep our facilities up and running. Our volunteers play a critical part in that.
Wow. Having grown up in Bradford County, I know firsthand about how the community can rally around a family. Been to several dinners in benefit of whoever it is.
Yes.
Like, we come out in force.
Yes, we do. We definitely take care of our people. Yeah, for sure.
All right. If you would, share your most meaningful story with the Black Poster Project. I'm sure you have lots, but what was one that just kind of comes to the surface? Most meaningful story?
Oh my God, that's a really hard one because it is very difficult to answer that because every single one of them, I put myself into the story. I don't know if I could single one out, but I can say that when somebody will send me their information, they'll just send me a picture and add my son and the dates, their birth and death dates. And I write back and I say, I have to be with you. I have to be in your family. I have to work with you. It's not something that I do every poster. I don't just make it in a day. I work with each family. I want to hear their stories, funny things, not so funny things, what happened, so that I can make that poster with their love included. So it's hard for me to pick out one story. Every single one of them, I feel the same thing when I make every single poster and I do every single story and I work with every single family. It's hard to pick one out because every one of them has a special effect on me.
Can you share a blooper, something that didn't go right, and then tell me what you learned from it?
Oh my gosh, I bloop every day, for crying out loud. Oh,
Okay, one that stands out more than others.
All right. I was going to say, what did I learn today? All right, what stands out more than others? I'll tell you what really is important: to learn how to let go and let other people take the reins now and again. Because this is something I created. You know, I think I'm the only one that can do it just right, you know, and there's many people. There is no I in team, and I always profess that. But it's if you're creating something and you're really passionate about it, it's a wonderful thing, but you have to be careful that you're not burning yourself out, you know, and that you're allowing yourself to have some self-care and self-time, you know, however that looks outside the organization. I am not the organization, you know. The organization is not me. Big lesson. Okay. That's a big one. I mean, and that, you know, you know, and just don't take yourself so seriously all the time.
They volunteer because it's personal to them and they want to see it continue.
Yes. Because one of the things that is a bit, without crying, poor me, it's quite difficult having had people today don't know what it is and they're not familiar with it. And we have quite a lot of things like idiosyncrasies in the way we move, things that other people might perceive as perhaps being rude, like it's difficult to stand up. Like, it's, you know, if everyone else stands up to give a toast to somebody perhaps and you can't stand up, it's difficult. You can't, you know, you have to explain why you walk the way you do. It's difficult. So one of the benefits of being in the Polio New Zealand is when we get together, which in regions, we get together quite regularly for coffees or lunches or something. It's almost like we have another family. It's like a polio family, we call it, because it's almost like a relief to get together with other people who have the same issues, because you don't have to explain yourself. And it's quite a unique feeling, really.
I know my listeners are going to appreciate that too, because sometimes we learn more from our bloopers than we do when things go right.
I appreciate the blooper side of things, because you know, sometimes we say failures and people, you know, they lock into that negative mindset. But I've learned more from the mistakes I've made, or the times that things didn't go the way that I thought they were going to go. This was one of those big examples of it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, and I came back. I think more impactful for me on that side of it than had it gone where I was a new guy and everybody loved me. I don't think I would have learned as much.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
I want you to know your blooper.
My blooper?
Tell me of a blooper and then what you learned from it.
I thought about that, and you know, it's I don't know if it qualifies for a blooper, but it's very difficult to manage volunteers. It's, you know, the old proverbial herding cats. There are folks who come into it with, I want to make a difference. I really want to do this. And they don't know what they need to do. And they may not have the skill set that, you know, you can teach people certain things, but they may not have the right skill set for what it is they're choosing to do. So it's very hard to fire a volunteer.
So you see it all. You see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep, the good, bad, and the ugly, absolutely. And unfortunately, sometimes that good and bad can take its toll for a while. And you know, but whenever you see that good, it's such a unique experience. You know, and I'll say this: most emergency responders will often not recognize how much of an impact that they have on other people. Like, for example, that person who's fallen, they just need help getting up, right? You may never understand how appreciative they are that someone was able to come pick them up.
That's awesome. Very cool. I think people don't realize how much they can make an impact just for a simple
Absolutely.
gesture. It doesn't have to be changing, like, how am I going to change the world? It's like, no, just help the person, your neighbor. Just go across the street and say, can I help you? Or, something simple. And what it does is tenfold, hundredfold of what you're giving.
Exactly. And you made a good point, Stormy. Like, for example, someone say, well, my neighbor needs help because they're aging. So you're helping one neighbor. But then you start to think about, if I have one neighbor who needs the help, maybe another aging neighbor in the neighborhood or down the street also need help. How can I make sure this is happening in our community? And once you spread the words out, other people would just take it on, right? So I think this is exactly the idea is you start something, and then other people can also scaling to replicate that kind of a work and the volunteer work.
Do you have other people in the community that help you sew and help you do these things when you're able to sell? Like, do you have other people helping you?
Yes, my wife and I had 10 other members of our church that were helping with the sewing, and mostly because the orders would go in South Africa, so they would help with sewing before we had the pandemic, right? And then my wife and I taught them and imparted skills on them to do that.
Now, you get the love on Habitat for Humanity, Kate May. Just why should people get involved? Why do you love it so much? Just love on your organization.
Well, when you asked me the impact thing, that was actually my loving thing too. Like, it's just so rewarding to be able to be a part of an organization that helps people find an affordable place to live. And having an affordable home in a safe neighborhood not only helps that individual family, but it helps the whole community at large. It's just, spreading the love, like we were talking about earlier about word of mouth. It's kind of like that too. So the more we can do to help people get into affordable houses in safe neighborhoods, it'll just spread from there, I think. And I love that Habitat for Humanity does that. And I love that Habitat for Humanity International, we go everywhere and do that. If there's a crisis, after a hurricane, in the Ukraine, building refugee housing in Poland. I mean, I just love everything about what the organization does to help people put a roof over their head. It's one of life's basic needs, and I just love that we help partner with families and people who need it.
You're seeing lives changed because of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is my impact story now. That was the buildup. I told you I have stories.
That's okay. I love it.
I live in the city of London, and at the time I lived very close to the children's hospital. So the grocery store that I would be most likely to travel to was across the street from the children's hospital. And it was February 3rd, and I think it was 2009 maybe. Or I think we started this program in 10. Yeah, it was in that we'd been doing it for a couple of years. And I'm waiting in line to pay. And in front of me is a mother and her son. And her son is probably close to about 10 years old, but very slight in size. So slight that he was sitting in a car seat, and the car seat was in the grocery cart.
Oh, wow.
He was wearing a black toque, a black wool beanie. And on the front of it was the stitching the words, I'll alter this. It's a cancer sucks, or cancer stinks. Okay. Cancer stinks. And in one of his eyes, it was his left eye socket, was a tumor, for lack of knowing his diagnosis, about the size of my fist. And you could tell he'd had a terrible, no good, very bad day. And in that moment, I wanted to be who I know I am, the Tracy that might say something to trigger a smile or a little bit of laughter, but I couldn't, because the empath in me started to have tears run down my cheek. And I'm like, I can't go talk to this child crying. That's not going to help his terrible bad day. And then I was comfortable in the resolve that although in that moment I could not put a smile on that child's face, in my involvement in my Optimist Club and the fundraisers for the Bravery Bead program, I have put many smiles on his face inadvertently by being involved in something bigger than myself. By sometimes I'm pumping up the tire of a child's tricycle, and sometimes I'm selling raffle tickets that are being donated, the funds are being donated to the Bravery Bead program, and my reach goes further than my eyes will ever see. And so if you ask for my impact statement, the reason that I am an optimist ultimately boils down to that evening in that grocery store where I realized I might not be able to touch the heart of that child in this moment, but I have touched him in my past and my future.
Yeah, amazing. You're touching my heart right now. Yeah, that's incredible, and that you were able to recognize that and see beyond the moment, like what that greater impact was and continue to be after that time. What would you say to our listeners who, to encourage them to get involved? What would you say to them?
Help as much as you can. It's so cool to put a smile on anyone's face. I love seeing smiles on people's faces.